Sairam, welcome to the Regional 10 Inspirational Channel, the monthly inspirational channel. Dear brothers and sisters of Sai family of Region 10, and also other brothers and sisters are from different regions, in case someone has joined. As many of you are aware that this quarter, October, November, and December, we are dedicating this inspiration channel for the SSC teachers and parents experiences. And as we have seen in the first month, October, we have a few panelists discussed about their experiences of being SSC teachers and how they have experienced the sessions, the teaching, and interaction with the children, and all those things we have discussed in first session. And similarly, we'll be having another set of panelists coming from different centers of the region, discussing about their own experiences with SSC curriculum, and also with the children of SSC. Before embarking on that one, we would like to play a short video of Swami's message and see how Swami is talking about education and what he is expecting of value-based education, which is our SSC, Sai Spiritual Education. And there are some housekeeping announcements. Since we are having question and answer sessions and we have requested all the parents and the devotees to send the questions well in advance, we have disabled the YouTube question session. There will not be any questions we are taking from online. With that brief introduction, we would like to present a small video of Swami.
ఈనాడు ముఖ్యంగా ఈ హ్యూమన్ మానవతా విలువలు చాలా అవసరం. హ్యూమన్ వాల్యూస్ ఆర్ వెరీ వెరీ నెసెసరీ. మానవతా విలువ ఉదయం నుంచి పుట్టే. The human value comes out of the heart. మనకు మనం ఆచరణలో పెట్టేటువంటిది. It is the one that will take us to practice.
I'm sorry, in case I have not correctly played the video, I'm going back and sharing it again. I suspect that I have not. Okay, looks like I have done it correctly.
ఈనాడు ముఖ్యంగా ఈ హ్యూమన్ వాల్యూ చాలా అవసరం. మానవతా విలువలు చాలా అవసరం.
Today human values are very very necessary.
మానవతా విలువ హృదయం నుంచి పుట్టేటువంటిది.
The human value comes out of the heart.
మనకు మనం ఆచరణలో పెట్టేటువంటిది.
It is the one that will take us to practice.
ప్రతి విషయాన్ని కూడా మనం ఆచరణలో పెట్టి ఇతరులకు బోధించండి.
Every matter we must practice first and then teach.
అంత సులభం కాదు.
It's not that easy.
కానీ కష్టపడాలి.
But yet we must struggle.
కష్టే ఫలి.
Out of struggling only you will have result.
ఎంత కష్టపడాలి?
You should work hard.
ఒక కార్ డ్రైవింగ్ నేర్చుకోవాలంటే ఎంత కష్టపడాలి?
To learn driving you should work hard.
అట్లనే హ్యూమన్ వాల్యూ కూడా నేర్చుకోండి.
Similarly learn human value.
ప్రాక్టీస్ ఇవ్వండి.
Practice it.
శ్రేయో హి జ్ఞానం అభ్యాసాత్.
Without practice you cannot have
జ్ఞాన
anything.
ధ్యానం విశేషతే. ధ్యానాత్ కర్మ ఫలత్యాగ త్యాగశాంతి అనంతరం ఒకటి అభ్యాసం. వాకింగ్ టాకింగ్ రీడింగ్ రైటింగ్ ఈటింగ్ అన్ని త్రూ ప్రాక్టీస్.
So walking talking reading writing everything comes out of practice.
కనుక హ్యూమన్ వాల్యూ కూడా ప్రాక్టీస్ చేయండి.
So practice human value.
కూర్చో, ఒక దినం పొద్దున్నే కూర్చో.
Sit down in the morning.
మరే నేను పిల్లలకంతా చెప్పాను.
I am teaching students.
నేను సరిగా చెప్పానా?
Did I teach well?
నా కాన్షియస్ తృప్తిగా ఉందా?
Have I satisfied my
నేను
conscience?
చేస్తున్నానా?
Am I practicing?
ఈ విధంగా ప్రతి దినము కూడాను తనకు తాను పరీక్షించుకోవాలి.
Like this everyone should examine one's own
తనలో
self.
ఏమైనా దోషం ఉంటే రెండవ దినం దాన్ని సరి చేసుకోవాలి.
If there is any mistake within him he should correct next day.
ఈ విధంగా పోయినప్పుడు దేశమంతా కూడా ఎంతైనా దీనిని ఆకర్షించి అందరూ గౌరవిస్తారు.
If we go like this it will attract the whole country and earn the respect of everyone.
సత్యసాయి కోరేటువంటిది ఒక్కటి.
Satya Sai desires only one thing.
అందరూ మంచి పడాలి, మంచిగా ఉండాలి.
All should be good. All should be good.
లోక సమస్త సుఖినో భవంతు.
This universe should be happy.
Sairam, with that brief introduction of what Swami is expecting about the value-based education and SSC, Sai Spiritual Education, we would like to move on to the panel discussion. To lead the panel discussion, I would request Region 10 SSC Coordinator to Suja Josem to come and take over. May I request Suja?
Sairam, thank you, Murli. Bye. My humble pranams at the divine lotus feet of our dearest Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba. Sairam, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. We have wonderful panelists lined up. And so we have 3 Group 4 teachers today, and they will answer some of the questions that you all had submitted. So we have Jwala Basani from San Antonio. Jwala, you can come on. Sairam.
Everyone. Sairam Suja.
Sairam. We have Upasana Ramlal from South Houston. Sairam, Upasana.
Sairam Suja. Sairam everyone.
And we have Sandeep Kulkarni from Dallas.
Sairam everyone, Sairam Suja.
Sairam. So thank you all for joining again. And we have these wonderful Group 4 teachers from the different centers. And so what we'll do is we'll ask them questions, and they'll all take turns answering the questions. So the first question I like to actually pose to all of you is that way it also serves as a form of introduction as for yourselves as well. What prompted you to come to SSC as a teacher, and what inspires you to teach? So let's start off with Jwala. Go ahead, Jwala.
Sairam, good question. From my childhood, I was involved with little children. I would, watch our neighbors' children, take them to park, play with them, spend a lot of time with them. I just loved being around children. And my teaching children actually started with my own sisters. I was the oldest in the family, and I would just love to, help them with their homeworks. I would help them with their tests and so on. Just a desire in my heart that they should excel in education. My mother was a teacher, and anybody in the school needed extra help. She would want them to come home so she could, tutor them. So I started assisting her in, tutoring children. And for some reason, education was very important to me, to the point that, there was a cleaning lady who was almost my age. She would come, and I got her a notebook and pencil, and I started teaching her every day after her chores. I would sit with her 15, 20 minutes and teach her, ABCs, just for that desire that she should be educated. So my mother eventually decided to get Balvika's training from Puttaparthi, and she went to Parthi, and I tagged along with her. I was like my mother's little extension. Whatever she did, I had to do that too. So she got her training, she came back, and she started Balvikas, in Hyderabad. So again, I started learning, and then I started assisting her. So that is somehow, without my knowledge, I entered into the spiritual education. And later on, when I came to US, in 2000, I had my first training from Bernice Mead. And after that, anytime Bernice was in Texas, I would try my best to attend all the refreshers and enrichment or training courses from her. So it was a very interesting journey. It happened, I guess, without my knowledge. So I started in 2000, I started teaching SSC. Of course, in the beginning, it was a little bit of, a learning curve, I would say. And later on, I started really enjoying SSC. I realized that, it's not about teaching, it's really about sharing and learning. And when I started teaching older groups, I realized that children bring beautiful perspective of the subject that you're teaching in the class. And when you view things from different angles, it actually makes you contemplate on the subject more. It deepened my own understanding of the subject that I was teaching. And this is when I realized that is something what keeps me attracted to SSC. Thank you, Sairam.
Thank you, Jwala. Thanks for sharing. Upasana, why don't you tell us how you came to SSC as a teacher and what inspires you?
Thank you, Suja, for that question. At a young age, I assisted and later taught in a community outreach program in South Africa. The program harnessed human values in young children. This is where my love for teaching began to blossom and later manifested into a career in education. The relationship and the importance of human values in both secular and spiritual knowledge has always been close to my heart. And I remember the first piece of advice I received when I began teaching, and it was be a shining example to all the children you come in contact with. During my professional experience, bringing human values to the classroom has always enhanced not only the child's academic progress, but more importantly, the child's character development. Upon moving to the USA, I was introduced to the SSE program, and it was a natural progression into the sphere of inculcating and inspiring young minds to enhance their human values and build a positive character. A fellow SSE teacher encouraged me to assist in the class and later to become a teacher. This is how the wonderful SSE teacher experience began for me. The constant journey that unfolds in the SSE class with the young children inspires me to continue. I'm always in awe and in total admiration of the young children who are faced with tremendous amount of expectations and pressure, they still find the time to attend and practice SSE teachings. In addition, I love the constant challenge of making Swami's message practical to all the young children who are holding their hands on this journey and illuminating their discrimination. Thank you, and Sai Ram.
Thank you, Upasana. That was just beautiful. And so how about Sandeep bhai? How did you become an SSC teacher and what inspires you to teach?
Sairam, everyone. I will start off by saying that ultimately it is Swami that brings us into his fold through many different ways. Now, in my particular case, I was lucky enough to get into Swami's fold when we moved to Vadodara, Gujarat, and this was about 40 years ago. I was in fourth grade, and I still distinctly remember that we used to go to Bal Vikas at our teacher's house, and our teacher had started teaching us the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Even to this day, I remember the first shloka from the 15th chapter. Urdhva Mula Madha Shakham Ashwatham Prahuravyayam. This talks about the magnificent banyan tree or the Ashwatha tree, which can grow up to 100 feet tall. And it is one of these unique trees which has its roots above the ground, but then these roots anchor back to the ground to provide support to this magnificent tree. Now, I was in Balvikas there for 2 years, and then we went to Zambia, Africa, and I completely lost touch with SSC. Now, fast forward 30 years from that time frame, and we moved to Austin. And one evening, I was late to pick up my son, Karthik, from his babysitter. And she told me that he had to be picked up at 5 p.m., specifically on Fridays, because she had a busy evening. And she mentioned that, she has to prepare dinner and then she goes and attends the Sai Center in the evening and enjoys bhajans. Well, that instantly revived my memories, from 30 years ago. And I got back into the Sai fold. My daughter started attending SSC classes. And from my perspective, I have always liked to teach. Even at work, I love conducting workshops. I love giving seminars. And here again, I think with Swami's grace, I was lucky enough to attend the SSC teachers training in Houston. And since then, I have been a teacher for the last several years. What really motivates me about SSC or Bal Vikas is that someone took the time out of their busy life and planted that wonderful seed in me 40 years ago, which then, was dormant for many years but sprouted later in my life. And to me, teaching at SSC gives me this opportunity to plant those seeds in the minds of our young students. They will eventually sprout whenever Swami wants. There is no need for us to worry about that process because Swami himself says, "Why fear when I am here?" So we just do our individual parts and he takes care of the rest. Saira.
Sairam, thank you, Sandeep Bhai. So you all have something in common. You all were exposed to SSC and teaching at a very young age. Jwala, you in India, Upasana, you in South Africa, and Sandeep Bhai, you in India as well. And in fact, looks like Swami has planted those seeds in you all back when you all were very young. And in Jwala's case and Upasana's case, you kept it kept growing for you. And in Sandeep Bhai's case, it was dormant. However, it all sprouted and germinated at the right time. So now you are all teaching and have started planting those seeds in SSE through all the children. So that is so wonderful. And so with that, like I know there's always, we are always trying to find out the relationship between the students, the parents, and the teachers, and try to communicate with them as much as possible. And however, there are times when what we hear, what we find out is there are differences in expectation between parents and students. And so I would like to ask Sandeep Bhai, how would you reconcile those differences in expectations between the parents and students?
That's a wonderful question. And thank you for that, Suja. The first thing is, everyone has expectations. Children have expectations, parents have expectations. Parents of children in this age group, well, I'm talking about 4A, which is the high schoolers, have a lot of expectations from their children. And as a result, there is bound to be tension and frustration on both sides when these expectations don't match. So, why don't some of these expectations match? Now, there are multiple reasons for this mismatch. But first, before we get into the mismatch part of it, we need to understand if the expectations that we as parents have are even the right expectations to begin with. Now, sometimes what you may see is that parents want to impose their will on the children. And just because, parents are doctors or engineers doesn't mean that they should impose their will and expect the children to become doctors or engineers. Or even vice versa, sometimes if parents couldn't become a doctor or engineer, they shouldn't force that the children try to do that. It's something that they missed out on. So it's really important to understand what is our role as parents. And the best place to go is to Swami and understand what Swami thinks our role is about parenting. Swami says that parents must feel that they are servants appointed by the Lord to tend the little souls that are born in their households. Swami describes this role as almost being similar to that of a gardener who tends the trees in the garden of the master. He or she is providing the trees with just the right amount of water, the right amount of nutrition, perhaps through fertilizer, occasional pruning, for better growth. And so the first question for us as parents is, are we providing that nutritious environment to our children? Are we being that role model that we would want them to emulate? Swami always has wonderful stories, and he tells this story. He says that there are two houses side by side, and both the houses are growing a nice fruit tree. In the first house, the person tending the tree gives that tree a lot of water, a lot of fertilizer. In fact, you can say an overabundance of water and fertilizer. Whereas in the second house, which is tended by the gardener, He is giving it just enough water, just the right amount of fertilizer, pruning the trees and the leaves as required. One day, a big storm comes by. The tree in the first house is uprooted, whereas the tree in the second house survives the storm. Why? Well, that's because Swami says the tree in the first house had an overabundance of food, so its roots were shallow. They didn't go deep into the ground to search for food. And so when the storm came, they were simply uprooted. They were not anchored to the ground. The moral of this story is, are we teaching the right values to our children? Because if we are, then our children will absolutely thrive. Swami says that they will be like a lotus in the lake, where they are in the water, yet unaffected by the water surrounding them. The students can be in a world full of diversions, and yet they will have the discriminatory power to not be affected by it. So his guidance to us is for us to teach our students the right values, to let them earn the things that they seek by hard work instead of giving it to them on a platter. Let them fall. And when they fall, let them learn how to get up on their own. If we impart these right values, they will grow up to be exceptional young adults. Swami also says that 90% of the children are spoiled by the parents themselves, and hence he emphasizes the importance of developing the right values early on. Another reason why there is expectations mismatch is that sometimes parents compare children with other siblings and or other children. Now here too Swami has said that each child is unique. He or she comes with their own innate potential and talent, and the child should only be made to compete with its own self, its own potential. We should stop comparing them with other children, including our own, because this leads to unnecessary tension and friction. And finally, Swami says, as parents, we should practice the three P's in parenting. The first P is prayer. He says, start the day with prayer. The second P is practice. He says, fill the day with practice. Be the role model that you want to be. And the third P is patience. He says, end the day with patience because there are going to be trying times throughout the day, but your ability to continue to be a role model and deal with those situations with patience is what the children are looking forward to. So, this is the way to parenting. It's very simply distilled into teaching our children the right values at a young age. Saira.
Sairam. Thank you, Sandeep. You really explained it really well, the expectations between the parents and students and what we as parents can do. And I really loved your analogy of the tree and how when you overwater and over nurture and overprotect, it cannot be strong enough to withstand all the blows of the world. However, when you really give them enough space with love and discipline, the roots will go deeper. And that's what SSC is all about. And Swami says roots are virtues. And that's something we cannot see. You cannot see the roots, but yet it's so important to support the whole tree. And same thing, SSC is giving virtues, teaching virtues to the children, and we can see that, but that will help them withstand anything that comes their way in life. So with that, we'll move on to our next question, and I'll ask Upasana, how does SSC help you to ensure healthy communication between students and parents?
Thank you, Suja, for that question. And indeed, healthy communication between parents and students is imperative. And so I thought I'll share that with the slide. So Suja, if you can please turn on that slide, that would be awesome. Okay, so whenever I have come in contact with children and we discussed an issue that's being challenged to them, the first thing I ask them is, did you chat with your parents? And almost always across nationalities, cultures, age groups, the answer is they will not understand. This is not a unique challenge. So take comfort, parents, in knowing that you are not alone and that we are all in the same boat. And you're doing a fantastic job of molding and chiseling the next generation. So let's tackle this concept of communication. Next slide, please, Suja. The SSE program imbibes human values of truth, right conduct, peace, love, and non-violence. The challenge, however, is that children have all the values taught to them in the SSE program on the one hand, and the reality they face every day is enveloped in drugs, bullying, peer pressure, alcohol, promiscuity, relationships, school performance pressures, to name a few. How then do we overcome these challenges? Thankfully, there is a tool that allows us to merge the two worlds our children live in, and that tool is communication. Next slide, please, Suja. Firstly, encouraging students and parents to accept that they have different perspectives and that they are seeing things differently always allows for understanding to develop, even though we may not always agree with each other. The respect that we accord to each other, which is a value that is instilled in the SSE program, helps us ensure that the children are willing to hear their parents' perspective. Next slide, please. The SSE program and the SSE students need to be able to make informed choices. They can only do that if they have received the knowledge. Thus, open, honest communication between students, parents, and guru is essential. Next slide, please, Suja. Thank you. Some of the activities that are infused in the SSE program, which provides an avenue for parents, students, and guru communication skills to be harnessed, are emails, seva activities, parent calls, parent volunteers, parent participation in life application, parent coordinated activities, parent-child socials, picnics, field visits with parents, and parent study circle. I'd just like to take a moment to discuss how we tried through the vision of our SSE coordinator to enhance communication between parent and child in our center through the SSE program. We have parent study circles over a number of weeks, which is facilitated by the SSE gurus. The first topic, which was led by the Group 4 teachers, was a discussion on communication. Over a number of weeks, the parents meet and discuss how to enhance communication with their children. In parallel, there are life applications that parents and children practiced. When we then proceeded, after both parents and children practice, to have a parent-child joint session. Children joined by their parents participated in a day of various activities and role plays. That was tapered not only to build communication skills, but to inspire better communication between parents and children. Next slide, please, Suja. Whenever I think of communication, I love what the Group 4 boys who were taught by Ravi Iyengar and Gopi Balakrishnan came up with. It was an acronym that sums up communication beautifully. We all go to UCLA. Understanding, listening, positive attitude, enhances communication. Next slide, please, Suja. So lastly, I would like to leave you with the words of wisdom of our beloved Swami on positive communication. This is Advaita in practice. Treat all as Swami and yourself too as Swami. The difficulty is when the other Swami is behaving badly. At that time, you remain the good Swami. Thank you. Sairam.
Thank you, Upasana. That was really wonderful. And like you said, parents have to understand the viewpoint and perspective where the children are coming from. And also, we one thing while you were talking, as you were saying things, is we should also we should be careful of the nonverbal clues also we are giving based on what you were saying. And also when we have these socials or these parent groups along with the children, that helps build that relationship better. And one thing is we need to be careful and watch and channel all our communication through our heart. So no matter what it is, how angry we are, we just have to take a step back and communicate it through our heart. And Swami actually, what he says is, there's an example he gives, like when we write a letter, we just don't write something and send the letter, right? We have to gather in our minds what needs to be communicated and what we want to say in the letter and how it's written and how we start, how we end. Same thing, I feel that's so apt, like when we have communication with anyone, and especially our children, because a lot of times they, we feel that they're pushing our buttons, but I think if we take a step back and we come from a place of love, and it's easier said than done, but if we come from a place of love, the conversation will go a lot better. So thanks for bringing all those points out. Thanks, Upasana. And now we'll go to Jwala. And so we saw the expectations between the students and the parents, and then we saw the communication between students and parents. And now I would like you to elaborate on service activities and other activities that the students get involved in, and maybe even the parents get involved in. So go ahead, Jwala.
Thank you, Suja. I'll start with what Swami has said about service. Of course, he has said a lot of things. One quote that comes to my mind is, service without the idea of the self is the very first step in the spiritual progress of man, for it trains you to transcend all the distinctions artificially imposed by history and geography, and to realize that human community is one and indivisible. God himself and the elements of the nature, sun and earth, are supreme examples of selfless service. So in SSC, we encourage children to begin service at home, to provide service to the family members at home, then in school, and then finally extend it to the community without the expectation of any reward. Young children start the service at home in the class initiated by the SSC teacher, then at the center level, which is coordinated by the education coordinator. When older children do have the option of, going to the nursing homes, soup kitchen, animal shelter, and places like that and serve. Older children are also encouraged to help plan and implement the service projects as they develop the awareness and compassion for the need of others. For example, in our center, we did a service where we involved all the groups, we involved the parents, and we also involved the teachers. So that was like, the perfect triangle that Upasana just showed. And this was a service project. We did it for Chrysalis Ministries, where we packaged non-perishable food items into cardboard boxes. So the very little children, SSC, pre-SSC, and the group 1 children made the greeting cards. That was for the holiday season. So they made the cards that would go in every box. And then the group 2 children helped sorting the food items that was purchased by the parents and the teachers. And group 3 and 4 helped in packaging all the food, the juices and the cereal boxes or the canned food, properly arranged and packaged it and sealed the box, and then parents helped deliver it. So we encourage parents to participate in the service projects as much as possible. And if they don't have the time, they can always participate on during special occasions like birthdays or for a shorter window of time, because parents are the best examples for the children. Children see their parents day in and day out, and if they involve in service, that will inspire the children to serve too. So why is selfless service important? Selfless service develops the strength and satisfaction and teaches to dedicate the results to God. Service to others develops the awareness of Atmic truth of oneness. Selfless service promotes tolerance, love, inner peace, and the experience of brotherhood of man. Selfless service provides a means of practicing all the human values, including sacrifice. Helping others wins the grace of God. The practice of selfless service is emphasized and implemented at every level of Satyasai organization, including the SSC. Swami said, "Your life is my message." Therefore, chief aim of teaching selfless service is to provide the opportunity for children to emulate the example of Swami through rendering service to others and practicing help ever, hurt never. Swami emphasizes that group service projects are for our own spiritual development. They provide the invaluable opportunity to tolerance and practice of human values through peaceful, loving ways of working together and developing awareness of underlying truth and unity between ourselves and those we serve. Thank you. Sairam.
Thank you, Jwala. Thanks for sharing all the wonderful benefits of how we have the opportunity to serve, and in the process, we are growing spiritually ourselves. I see this as a wonderful life application opportunity to practice life application, both for students and for parents, because I know that the teachers are teaching them in the classroom, so it's basically they're teaching the head. And when they are acting, by doing service, they are acting, but when their head connects with their heart and they act, that comes out as beautiful service. And then there's unity in thought, word, and deed. And like you said, that's when they can experience oneness. So thanks for bringing those wonderful points. And since you talked about service, we will watch a short video on the different service activities from the Dallas Psi Center, from the San Antonio Psi Center, and also from the South Houston Psi Center. So now we saw the service video, and we'll move on to our next question. I'll go to Upasana. And so as part of SSE, how are you instilling leadership skills in the students?
Thank you, Suja. That's a great question, and it ties in beautifully with what Jwala discussed in the previous question on seva. As Mahatma Gandhi says, be the change you want to see in the world. Swami says, first is to be, second is to do, third is to see, and fourth is to tell. The premise from which the SSC class operates is one of self-discovery and the evolution of one's thinking, which shines a light and illuminates one's buddhi or discrimination to not only answer or not only question, but to understand the relationship between human values and leadership. Explaining this relationship is best described by an example the Group 4 undertook. The first step is to be. An example of the to be was a Group 4 class. As a Group 4 class, we participated in what we discussed about wise woman. We practiced what it meant to be a wise woman, and we discussed characteristics of a wise woman. We looked for examples of wise women, and we undertook life applications to harness daily practice of being wise women. That was the first step of to be. Once we began to practice, we then started to do. We put the wise woman's actions into practice, and the students began to take ownership of activities. That's when the rubber meets the road. The working surface is manifested in the various seva activities that the Group 4 girls coordinated. The young ladies are completely responsible for coming up with the seva activity, the planning, procurement, and production of all the needs of the seva. The group needs to work together as a team. Often, the team lead is decided upon and duties are allocated. All I do as the teacher is ask them to provide me a plan and an execution strategy. I observe and I facilitate. One activity they undertook to embark on a seva activity in the area that was affected by Hurricane Harvey. Those were some of the pictures you saw in the previous video. The young ladies prepared community games for the children, set up stalls that the children can visit with different activities like nail polish painting, henna, darts games, and football games. They also involved other members of the center to assist with prizes and gifts that could be awarded to children for participating in the games. They also invited other SSC groups to participate in the activity. The next step is to see. They watch their actions unfold and observe their leadership skills in practice. They were able to see their plans unfold and learn to problem solve and be proactive in their thinking. Lastly was the to tell aspect. They presented their experience and their practices to the entire SSE body in the assembly, as well as to parents. This allowed the young children to see examples of students that imbibe Swami's leadership qualities. Thus, Seva is a unique avenue that SSE provides to young children to enhance leadership skills. Sairam.
Thank you, Upasana. It was really interesting that you said that service is an opportunity to provide leadership skills, right? Because I was looking this up, and Swami actually says people should realize that service is the passport to leadership. And then he also says in another discourse, he says, service is the best school for training in leadership. So it's very interesting how Jwala like talked about service activities and how you talked about service activities. And when we talked about Jwala, like it was more like a life application for the students. And then when you talked about leadership, you're taking that life application one step beyond, and you actually like, it's helping them not just for them to realize the oneness with everyone, but also to develop their own life, their own leadership skills. So that was very wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And so now we will move on to Sandeep Bhai. And like we talked about leadership, we talked about service, and we talked about oneness. And I would like to know, like, how do you help students like relate to Swami in your classes?
This is a tough question. And this is where I think the children of this generation struggle the most. We can say that you can relate to Swami in any which way you want, as a mother, as a father, as teacher, as God. However, the students of this generation or the children of this generation um, need reasons. They will not accept any of these relationships without challenging some of them. And when they challenge them, we as parents need to be prepared. We need to have answers that we can provide them that will satisfy them. So let's take a look at some of the different relationships that are there, and then we will talk about which one seems to be working the best, right? When we think about Swami as a mother or father, this can be a little bit tricky because the children may think, hey, I already have a parent, I already have mother and father. And so this could be a little difficult, in terms of accepting that relationship. If we think about Swami as the Lord, well, the students that are brought up, in the Sai family, there is not that much doubt in their mind, and they willingly accept and they know that Swami is God. But students that don't come from the Sai family have doubts about it, and they may not be comfortable thinking about Swami as God, and will not likely accept this form of a relationship without reasoning or challenging it. And even before we think about, what students think, let's see what Swami says himself about God. Swami says that God is within you. You don't need to look outside of you to find him. You don't need to look at me as God. And since God is inside you, all you need to do is just develop that oneness with him. So if Swami is saying that, hey, you don't need to look at me, through the lens of through the lens of a God, then how exactly should students relate to Swami? Relating to Swami as a teacher definitely has some resonance. I think the relationship between a student and a teacher, and given the fact that we learn so many things from Swami, is something that gels and definitely finds resonance with the children. Now, in 4A, as Upasana and Jwala talked about, we are focused on leadership. Students are always attracted to a leader. They're attracted to a role model. And who can be a better role model than Swami? And so, what we have done is we have taken the approach of connecting with Swami through his leadership. Now, this is actually an easy sell for us and for the students because they all know Swami's exemplary leadership and the work that he has done in the areas of SSC, healthcare, water distribution to millions of people in India, food distribution through Gram Seva, again to millions of people. And this allows the students to see Swami as a role model, as a leader, as someone who is bringing positive change in the community in a multitude of different areas. Most importantly, he is setting the example of not just leadership, but selfless leadership. Swami does not want anything from this. He is expecting absolutely nothing in return. And this is what, once the students understand this, this is what leads them to realize that the work done by Swami is divine. In fact, we asked this question in our class: how many of you think that you can do something like this and exert leadership that can affect millions of people in a positive way? And when the students reflected on that, that's when they realized the magnificence of his work and the magnificence of his leadership. In our class, students have also learned that the yardstick to measure leadership is the legacy that leaders leave behind. Look at Swami's legacy. Even though he's not there in his physical form, the work across the different areas continues around the globe, and it continues to expand and serve the society. This is nothing short of a revolution or a miracle. Thousands have followed Swami, have heard him, have been inspired, have responded to his call. And so, while you can choose your own relationship to relate to Swami, whether it's as a mother, a father, a teacher, God, we are relating to Swami as a selfless leader. This is something that the students are able to connect with very easily, and there are no challenges that we encounter from the students. As Upasana said, Swami always says to be, to do, to see, and to tell. Swami's work, his selfless leadership, speaks for itself. He doesn't have to do any telling, and we can all aspire to be selfless leaders like him. Saira.
Thank you, Sandeep Bhai. That was just wonderful. So who better role model, right, for us to follow than Swami? And one thing you got me thinking is, Swami, you don't see him really like actually like lifting bricks or he is serving and all, but what he actually does is he inspires so many people to help in the project. So in that way, the project is getting done and he's being a wonderful leader, and he does come and give a hand when needed. And he's inspiring so many people to help in that project. So everybody has an opportunity in that project. And it's same going back to service, right? You build a leadership through service as well. So thanks for sharing that. That's just a wonderful role model. Swami is definitely a wonderful role model, and we can take so much from how he even finished all those projects with just in such a short time. It's just mind-boggling. And absolutely, I'm sure, like you said, the children in group 4, they probably are in awe just seeing how that was all accomplished. So thanks for sharing that. And so now we've been talking about like students, right? So I'll go to Jwala. And Jwala, where do you see the need of SSE is in today's world, today's academics with the students?
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. Thank you for this question, Suja. It's a very important question. We learn what we learn in SSE, but then how is it applicable in our daily life, in our schools? So thank you for that. Swami says the end of education is character, and education is for life, not only for earning a livelihood. The secular education is related to the external world and creates a sense of competition, while the spiritual education is related to the internal world and focuses on character building. Now, children these days face a lot of challenges like Upasana mentioned: ethical dilemmas, peer pressure, bullying, racism, and so on. Sai spiritual education gives them powerful tools to get through any difficult situation. In SSC, children learn to have faith in God, respect for parents, elders, teachers. Swami says that the primary ingredient toward building good character is self confidence. Swami gives the example of this mighty elephant who had incredible confidence in his physical and mental strength. But when the trouble arrived, he was not able to help himself. All his confidence and physical and mental strength failed. And then finally, when he reached out to Lord Vishnu, he had the real confidence that Vishnu will help him. And he did, and God did help him out. So, this is what we in SSC teach children, that the real self confidence, the confidence in the higher self, is the one that empowers them to face tough situations. SSC teaches discrimination. Children learn the consequences of their action through stories and real life examples. We have noticed that from elementary schools to high schools, there is a struggle to make the schools drug free. Now, SSC children are able to discriminate right from wrong, and they are able to stay away from drugs. Not only that, they also influence their friends in the schools to stay away. Swami talks about keeping good company, and that is what we encourage in SSC also. Now, when children they become a good company and they hang out with good company, they encourage each other to do the right thing, whether it is, in school, or whether it is the friend in the neighborhood. We also talk about unity of faith and brotherhood of man in SSC, where children are taught to respect all the religions. This helps them to embrace their peers without any judgment of any background or race or religion, etc. Children also learn to serve humanity. Service teaches children to be humble and have gratitude and see oneness in everyone. Schools also recognize this, and they also have volunteer programs. Children are taught the value of sacrifice and ceding on desires, which involves using all resources wisely to reduce waste and to reduce one's desire and harmful and negative emotions. Food waste is about 30 to 40% in America. Our children learn not to waste food, not only at home, but also in the schools or get-togethers or parties they go to. Learning not to waste time and energy helps them prioritize their homeworks, activities, or chores at home. Group activities encourage teamwork. They help in peaceful resolution of personal conflicts, which children can apply in their sports and games, or orchestra, band, or any group activity in school. In SSC, our children learn that unity in thought, word, and deed leads to purity and divinity. When their thoughts follow their words and actions, they are trusted by their peers and teachers. SSC also teaches the importance of eating healthy, the concept of sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic food, food that is pure, food that makes you hyper, and the food that makes you dull, which is very essential for body and mind. As Sister Upasana and Sandeep Bhai talked about, SSC builds the character of leadership and prepares future leaders of our country. We also talk about meditation techniques in SSC, depending on the age group. We talk about, we teach them silent sitting or Soham meditation, light meditation, so on. Now, these practices increase their focus in schoolwork. It helps them maintain serenity. Now, one example comes to my mind is, Bunny Smith used to tell the story of two children who had exemplary behavior in school. And to the point that the teachers, principal, everybody noticed it. So the principal called the mother and asked her, what is it that you do differently to raise your children? And the mother responded saying, my children attend the Sai Spiritual Education Program. So this is a very good example of how SSC complements the secular education. Swami proclaimed that education without character, science without humanity, commerce without morality are not only useless but positively dangerous. Thank you, Sairam.
Sairam, Jwala. Thanks for summarizing the whole SSC program. That's just wonderful to hear, like, all the different aspects of SSC, what's going on. And when we talk about the SSC program, one thing that came to mind is, as we are like, Swami has given us this operating system for us. And so it's like Swami operating system, or however you want to call it, or life operating system. And he has given us all the different programs for us to boot up in the morning, get started, and go about our day, and keep refreshing ourselves during the day, and also before we sleep at night, shut down and sleep and go to sleep peacefully. So and it's not something you can just do one time, two times. It's, you have to boot up every single day. So SSC program has given us that, and it's given us so many other opportunities. We talked about what are the expectations, and we talked about communication between the students and parents, and we also talked about service, we talked about leadership, and so we talked about relating to Swami. So I think it's such a wonderful program that Swami has given us. And I think if I wish I was young and I can go through this program myself. So thank you all for sharing such wonderful thoughts. And before we conclude, the time has just passed so fast. Before we conclude, I'd like Upasana to just tell us, I know you had sent us a video that we would like to share, and that's showing on leadership as well. So I'd like you to share a tiny bit, and then I'll show the video. Just give us a little background on the video.
Sairam, Suja, thank you. As you said, the SSC program gives us so much of skills, and now the video shows us how these skills are put into action. When we were put on lockdown, the young ladies expressed to me their difficulties and their challenges they were facing due to being at home. We also discussed how many other SSC students would be feeling the same way. We spoke about their negative energy and how it could be transformed into a positive one. Thus, we were tasked with the life application of being leaders and being examples, and to spread love and joy to the rest of SSE. And the following video is a product of that love. So you may share the video, Suja.
Learn something new, a talent to pursue. There's so many things that you can do. Cook a meal, paint a picture, read a book, maybe text your sister. Social distancing. Clean out your room, learn kung fu, take up some weird lessons in voodoo. Lift some weights, take yourself on a date, read the Constitution of the United States. This is the quarantine song, everybody come and sing along. Quit complaining, let's find something entertaining. This is the quarantine song, learn the lyrics and sing along. Don't make an excuse, take the time and put it to fair use. Although we may get into fights, who's up for family game night? Uno, chess, Monopoly, and let's not forget about sorry. Grab some popcorn, let's watch a movie. Everything's better with company. Just don't go outside, just connect with people online. This is the quarantine song, everybody come and sing along. Quit complaining and find something entertaining. This is the quarantine song, learn the lyrics and sing along. Don't make an excuse, take the time and put it to fair use. If you don't know Siblings, friendships, school, all of that, everything's managed on that app. So this is the quarantine song. Everybody come and sing along. Quit complaining and find something entertaining. This is the quarantine song. Learn the lyrics and sing along. Don't make an excuse, take the time and put it to fair use. Take an excuse, take the time and put it to fair use. Quarantine song. Quarantine song. Quarantine song. Quarantine song.
That was wonderful. They made such good use of their time. So we are all coming, we've come to an end. That hour has gone by so fast. So thanks everybody for attending this program. And we would really like to thank Swami for giving us this opportunity to talk about SSE. Please join us next month on December 2nd to hear from SSE parents. Stay safe and healthy. Sai Ram, everybody.